Good morning in Los Angeles. Good evening, everybody in Israel. Welcome to our virtual Israel program. We're going to let everybody come into our virtual room before we get started this morning. We'll get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to let everybody get into our room. All the attendees are populating in. We're very, very excited to have you with us this morning. Once again, we'll get started momentarily. We're just going to let everybody who's joining us come into our virtual room. As you can see, we are very excited to be joined live from Jerusalem. Just a few more moments and we will get started. I'm sure many others will be joining as we get started, but I will begin our program. Once again, good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Gold. I'm with the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles, and I'm here in Los Angeles. We are so excited to have you with us for our second Zoom experience of our spring virtual Israel trip. For those of you that were with us over the summer, you remember we did a big virtual Israel trip over the summer, and now we're back for part two. And we're so excited to be joined live from Jerusalem today. Many of you may have been with us yesterday when we had a culinary experience with Chef Meir Adoni and our partners, our Federation partners at Latet. We're going to continue the theme of food and culture and culinary arts, and we're going to get a close-up look, even though it's evening over in Jerusalem, a close look at one of the most vibrant, robust places in all of Israel, the Machaneh Yehudah Market in Jerusalem. But before we get going, I want to just say a few words. Just a quick reminder, all of our Zooms are recorded. So if for some reason you need to leave early or you want to share with family and friends, you can do so. If you have questions, please use the Q&A box in your Zoom window. Our tour guide, Ori, will be stopping at different points of the tour to answer any questions you may have. So please put those questions there. Also want to say that we'll be sharing links in the chat box. Some links about, you can have resources for this Zoom, learn more about Machaneh Yehudah. Also the link to register for future Zoom programs that are continuing throughout the month of April, May, and June. But before we get started, I just want to say a few words about our federation. The Jewish Federation of LA, of course, we identify and address the greatest challenges, needs, and opportunities facing our community, both locally and globally. The pandemic brought us waves of new challenges and critical needs. And in response, we pivoted quickly and dramatically expanded our work, responding to our already newly at-risk vulnerable populations in Israel and in Los Angeles, and found creative ways to keep our community engaged. The Federation secured, stabilized, and kept our Jewish community alive and connected. We amended our program quickly so that we could respond in the most strategic manner possible, working intensely with all of our network of partners. Throughout 2020 and now into 2021, we work to continue to keep our community involved in Jewish life. We've offered extensive virtual programs, such as the program like this now and all of our virtual Israel trips for young adults and families with children, as well as all sorts of virtual experiences overseas and here at home. We also convened our partners and other community leaders together to address issues of common concern, explore opportunities for new kinds of collaboration, and think together about what kind of community we want after the pandemic is over. We, of course, continue to do our ongoing work of keeping our community safe and advocating for our community's interests in the legislature and in the classroom. So we're so thrilled that our federation can be offering another opportunity for us to feel a little bit of Israel, even though we haven't been able to travel there in the last year. And hopefully we're right near the end. Hopefully this is the last time we have to do this virtually, and we will all be there in person very, very soon. So with that, I'm so thrilled to introduce our tour guide for today, a local to Jerusalem, somebody who knows Machaneh Yehudah well. So I'm going to turn it over to our tour guide, Ori Uterman.
Shalom, everyone. Hi, this is such an honor to meet you. So Dan, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Ori. I was born and raised here in Jerusalem. I've been a tour guide for the past 11 years of my life. And my family is actually living here in Jerusalem since the 1830s. So for me to be able, like, to have this opportunity to bring you over to the shuk, it's not just a tour, it's actually an option for you guys to come into my kitchen. So as you know, the official name of this market is the Machaneh Yehudah market, but we're going to use the local terminology. We're actually going to call it the shuk, the market. Today, our shuk is actually quite chic. People are coming here to see and to be seen, and not just to find the cheapest and the most accessible fruits and vegetables. We're going to dive right in. I'm standing right now in the middle of the shuk, in the middle of the main street. You can see that even though it's 6 in the evening, it's pretty packed. As you all know, shalom. So many people I haven't seen in a long time. As you know, Passover is just a week away. Everyone are coming here to do their shopping towards the holiday. And I have to say that thanks to you guys in the camera, I don't have to wear my mask on. By the law in Israel right now, everyone have to wear their masks whenever they're outdoors. So this is why you're going to see everyone's faces half covered. And we're going to dive right in. So let's go. So the Machaneh Yehudah market is actually the biggest shuk that we have in Israel. It's divided into 6 different sections. And if you don't really know the fact that they're different, you won't necessarily feel them. Right now, we're walking towards into one of the main streets. We call it the closed shuk because, as you guys can see, it has a rooftop. So if it's raining or anything like that, it's actually the best place to be, where it's all kind of indoors and everything is safe. And our first stop is going to be my favorite spice store. You guys know, if someone is coming from Jerusalem, we call them a Yerushalmi. If someone is coming from Tel Aviv, we call them a Tel Avivi. And if someone is coming from the city of Yazd, which is a city in Persia, in Iran, we actually call them the Yazdi. And this is the name of the store. This is the Yazdi. The owners is standing outside. I think he's just finishing to smoke his cigarette. So we'll wait for him for a second. And I want to invite you guys into the beautiful store. So this is a beautiful spice store, as you guys can see. In Hebrew, the word spice is tavlin. And the source of the name is actually in Aramaic. Tavel means world. So tavlin means worlds. Basically, when you're coming to a good spice store, you're doing kind of a world round trip, because every different spice is coming from a different country, a different tradition, a different culinary culture within it. If we're gonna come over here, I actually want to show you 2 spices that are exactly the same but very different. So right here, this beautiful orange spice, this is the spicy paprika, and it's coming originally from Morocco. And right up here, we have another paprika, but this one is the sweet paprika. You can see that the color is different and the origin is different. The sweet paprika is actually coming from Hungary. Just think about it. It's the same spice, but 2 very different flavors impacted by the country of the origin. But as I mentioned, this is a Persian spice store. So let's talk a little bit about the Persian spices. Right here, we have the beautiful korse kamar. So traditionally, women are putting it on the fire. After 10 minutes, it cracks. You take it off the fire, you hit it with a hammer, and there's white powder. Inside, you scoop it out, mix it with olive oil, and rub it on the bottom part of your back. Traditionally, it helps women who are struggling to get pregnant. But don't worry, gentlemen, we didn't forget you. Right next to it, we have the lovely chulinjan. That's what it looks like. This is a sibling of the ginger. It's a little dried out. You're supposed to take a tiny piece like this and let it soak in boiling water for about 15 to 20 minutes. You drink the water, and it's kind of natural Viagra. You're good to go. So the combination of those 2 might be a little risky. But what should you do when you're having company over? Let me show you. And we're actually going to take a box that is stacked all the way up, so it's not open to the public. It's just for you guys. So when we're having company over, we want to make sure that we welcome everyone and everyone are having the best time. So, this is where we keep our treasures. This beautiful thing is called nabat. This is rock sugar. You can see that it's wrapped around a string. And traditionally, you're supposed to put it in a kettle of tea, and you're not supposed to stir the tea. So the more tea you drink, the sweeter it gets. In the last sip, which is extremely sweet, almost too sweet, we actually call it sababa. It's a slang that we use a lot in Hebrew today, and it means so sweet, it's actually too sweet to drink. So after you've seen all the secret things that we have here in the store, I'd like to share with you a little bit of the family secrets that we have here. Opa. So right here, speaking on the phone, we have David. Hopefully, he'll face to us in a minute. I guess it's an urgent phone call. David was actually born in the city of Yazd in Iran, and he moved here to Israel about 15 years ago with his entire family. But his aunt, the owner's sister, is still living in Iran. And once a year, they meet in Turkey, and they actually smuggle some of the spices from Iran through Turkey directly to here. So this beautiful place is one of the only places you can get the original Persian spices. I actually see that the owner himself is here. So instead of talking to his son, we'll be able to talk to the owners. מה נשמע יוסף? הכל בסדר? הכל טוב?
הכל בסדר.
אתה יכול לספר קצת על המשפחה?
המשפחה, אנחנו... סבא בפרס.
So he served in the military in Persia, in Iran.
ולפני בערך 18 שנים עליתי.
About 18 years ago, they moved to Israel. With his children, David, speaking on the phone, was born in Iran. Baruch Hashem, we have a spice store. All the Persians. All those spices that are traditional Persian that I don't necessarily know. Baruch Hashem. Everything's okay. So there's תודה רבה. Thank you so much. שנה טובה.
שנה טובה, סלנו מברק.
איך?
סלנו מברק.
סלנו מברק. Why do we say that now? למה אומרים את זה עכשיו?
זה ראש השנה של פרסים.
Oh, this is the Persian New Year, נורוז, coming. בשבת, נכון?
שבת.
On Shabbat, we're going to celebrate the Persian New Year's. Another thing that is happening here beautifully is that every day around 2:30, everyone around the shuk know that this place is no longer a spice store. This place is turning into a pop-up synagogue. So all the different vendors from around are coming here and they're praying among the spices for 10 to 15 minutes, and then they're going back to their work. תודה רבה, חג שמח. So we're going to continue up the street. So from a Persian spice store, we're actually going to pass next to a beautiful dessert place. מה קורה? תודה רבה. So this dish is called kiyortush. We'll move over here. Okay. So this dish is called kiyortush. It's actually a traditional Hungarian dessert. As you can see, the main ingredient is dough. And the lovely worker works here. She's going to make one just for us before our eyes. Meanwhile, I want to talk a little bit about the owner. His name is Chaim. And Chaim is my age. I met him here at the shuk. And honestly, I wasn't too excited. He had a business here. His first business here was a bar. But then one day I came to his bar and we had a beer together. And he told me that the original owner of this store is his grandmother. And he's the third generation of a shop owner here in the shuk. Come a little closer. So this is the kiyortush. To begin with, we put some oil. On top of that, she's going to open the dough. Now this is a special yeast dough that was made in advance, and it has to sit and rest at least for 2 days in the fridge to get the beautiful, nice texture. It's not as easy as it looks because because the dough just came out of the fridge. The resistance is a little strong. It's not as flexible as you guys can see. The next thing is that we need to add the different spices on top of it. Till we get to the point that the dough is thin enough so we can work with it and eventually wrap it around. Also want to make sure it's in the exact shape. I have to say that among the Israeli kitchen, this dish, the kiyortush, is pretty fresh. It's pretty new. It's a dish that we started see popping among the Israeli kitchen just 3 years ago, though it's been existing around for many years. A little more oil on the stick itself. And here we go to the wrapping. And when she wraps it around, she wants to make sure that it's a little parallel, but not right on top of the other, so it won't be too thick. Putting the edge inside. Adding some sugar. Making sure that all the sugar sticks to the dough itself. And eventually, the technique that we use here, we call it the shawarma. So basically, can we go inside? Is that okay? Okay, it's a little complicated to go inside, but basically the technique we use is the shawarma. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's rolling around. So it's getting fried equally from all the different sounds, and eventually it looks just like this. So it's kind of a unique ice cream cone. And more than the ice cream, the special thing about it is the cone itself. So guys, let's dive into the main street of the shuk. I don't want to talk for the next, let's say 30 seconds. I just want you guys to hear the different people around me, the music, the vibrance of the shuk. It's just beautiful to see. So the beautiful bread store that we see in front of us is called Teller's Bakery. It's actually a family business. And you can see that people are standing in the line. They're probably not the locals. This bakery is familiar that every day at 6:45, so in about 25 minutes, they're going to drop their prices by 50%. They're going to go half price down because they want to make sure that everything that they're selling is extremely fresh. I am so excited to invite you into the tahini kingdom. I assume that you guys tasted the tahini, but have you ever seen how it's being made? Let me show it to you. So what we have here at the top, at the small window, these are the sesame seeds. By the way, the tradition of making the tahini is coming all the way from Ethiopia. The sesame seeds are being grinded in between the two rocks. You can see that the color of the top rock is black. It's actually coming from the from the area of the Galilee. It's a basal stone, the bottom one as well, but the tahini kind of covered it. And eventually, what we see here, this is the OG tahina. This is like the most pure, the most healthy version of tahini that you can get. Tahini is a key ingredient in the Israeli kitchen. I'm sure that we talked about it yesterday with Chef Meir Adoni. First of all, the sesame seeds are very accessible here in Israel. And also we use it a lot in many different recipes. For example, one of the most classic Israeli thing you can do, you can take an eggplant, you can just put it, you can put it directly on fire. When you take it off the fire, you just peel it off. You pour some tahini on top of it. You can add some parsley if you want and just dive in. That would be like a classic traditional Israeli flavor using tahini. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a sweets girl. As much as I love sour, sweets are my thing. I want to show you the best thing that you can make out of tahini, which is halva. Right across the street. let me introduce you to heaven and earth. So what we have here is the halva. Basically, you take the tahini, you mix it with sugar, and you bake it in the oven. And eventually you get this like nice texture that is like kind of like melting in your mouth, but also a little sticky. And the flavor of the flavor of halva itself is pretty basic, so you can easily play around with it. For example, right here at the Halva Kingdom, we have over 60 flavors of halva. So we're starting at like, pistachio and pecan. You can go all the way down to different chocolate flavors. But my favorite, I say that they're moving it around. You also get the spicy chili, but I'm looking for my favorite one. I think they just took it off. I don't know why. I'll tell it to you guys anyway. My favorite flavor is the Scotch. They make whiskey flavor for halva. When we think about it, halva is perfect for the Israeli kitchen. First of all, it doesn't have to be kept not in the cold or not in the heat, so you can travel easily with it. On top of it, it's dairy-free, it's carved, so you can have it as a dessert after any meal. And more than that, this combination makes it ideal to military lunch. And actually, the place of halva as a core element in the Israeli kitchen is coming through our military culture. Guys, I want to keep walking down the street. Show you one of the most beautiful hidden secrets that we have here in the shuk. So as I mentioned from before, our shuk is also turning to be chic, especially in the past 10 years. All of a sudden, we have different bars and restaurants opening up in the shuk. And today, this is the coolest thing to do when you're coming to Jerusalem. You hang out in the shuk, you get some halva, some fruits, some vegetables, and eventually you're sitting for a drink with your friends. You can hear that every store has a different music plays, have a different vibe, attracting all kind of different people. And this is what I love about the shuk. It's in the very center of Jerusalem, but you get so many different people coming here and getting together. It's a beautiful thing to see. We are now about to get off the main street to a section that we call the Georgian Market. It was established 130 years ago by the Jewish community that came all the way from Georgia, Russia. And they established it off the main street. And up until today, it's some kind of a backyard here in the shuk. A lot of the not so legal kind of initiative things started in this beautiful court that we're just about to enter. So about 7 years ago, we had this guy who was 18 and he came all the way from the UK to study here at the yeshiva. And he told his mother, Ma, I really want to get closer to God. I want to come to Jerusalem. I really think he just wanted to get away from his mother. And when he came to Jerusalem, instead of going to yeshiva, he came here to the shuk. Sorry? He came here to, it's part of what's happening here. I actually know this guy. A good job. So he came here to the shuk every night and he loved the scene because about 7 years ago, the bars and the restaurants started to pop up. And he loved it and he got to meet so many different and new people. But then it was Shabbat. And because all the ownership here in the shuk is completely Jewish, none of the places are open on Shabbat. And he said, I don't get it. People are coming to the shuk to get together, to relax, to hang out. And he says, this is exactly the essence of Shabbat, to relax and to chill and to get to meet new people. And he said, but no one is coming here on Shabbat. So he came here one night and he did something completely illegally. Let's go check it out. Anishma. He came here and he put it up this beautiful graffiti. Now at the beginning, the owners thought to himself, what? This is vandalism. I don't get it. But then he stopped for a second to take a look. And what we see here, we have this older gentleman. He's riding a white donkey. And then in the background, we have this building that is kind of exploding. This is the image of the Messiah arriving to Jerusalem bringing redemption. And the owners love the concept that his store will bring redemptions to the shuk and to Jerusalem and to the world. So we decided to live it up. Now, a few weeks after that, the mysterious artist shows up again. And he's starting to spread his art pieces all around the doors of the shuk. what we see here, this is the biblical image of Jerusalem. We have the temple at the top. We can see the walls of the city and the water source, the Hezekiah tunnels. If you've been to Jerusalem and you walked in the water tunnels in the city of David, this is the one that is mentioned here. And people were so eager to discover who's this mysterious artist coming here, what's his deal. And only in the fourth time he came here, he signed his name. And this is what we have here. So we have the image of the one and only, Shalom, the one and only King Solomon, and the signature, Solomon Soza. And he has a really cool concept, and it goes like this. It says, if you'll come to the shuk during the day, you can see the doors, you can see the graffiti on the doors that are shut during the day, so they're open during the night. But if you'll come to the shuk during the night, you can only see the graffiti on the doors that are shut during the night and open during the day. So the only time you can see all the art pieces one next to the other is Shabbat. In his vision, every Shabbat, the secular Jews will come with the booze and the religious Jews will come with the food. And together they will mingle and party among the art. Now, believe it or not, this is a beautiful festival that takes place one weekend a year. The weekend before Purim, you can come here to the shuk, and it's lively and packed with different people for one Shabbat a year. It's a beautiful thing to see. So we're actually going to step outside of this small court so we can talk for a little bit, so I can hear you guys and hear if you guys have any questions. And as we pass by, there is one thing that I cannot pass you, and I'm so sorry for that, which is the smell. This is actually the season of fresh garlic. And if you guys could be here, you could not ignore the smell of the lovely fresh garlic around. For me, it always brings up the memories of Passover at my grandparents. So we're going to go out to the main street without a rooftop. So hopefully I can get some of your questions.
Alan, welcome, Alan.
By the way, everyone are very excited to see me with the camera crew behind me. They know that there's someone behind the camera. We all miss you guys so much. This is why people are waving at the camera, because they assume who you guys are. A little packed. Okay, so here we are back at the main street where we started our meeting. And Dan, I would love to hear some questions.
Thank you, Ori. This is wonderful. We're getting a lot of comments, people, how much they love it. They feel like they're back there. The first question that we have is, can you give us a little description of the geography within the city of Jerusalem? Where is the market located? How close are you to certain things? Give us a little bit of that background.
Of course, of course. So where we're standing from right now, about 1 mile towards the east is the old city. So that would be about like 15 minutes walking distance from where I'm standing right now towards the east until we hit the Jaffa gate. And from here, about 32 miles towards the west is the city of Tel Aviv itself. So I'm definitely in the area of Jerusalem. If you're familiar with the Ben Yehudah area, it's about 7 minutes walking distance.
Perfect, thank you. And tell us a little bit about, a lot of these businesses, as you said, go back generations. Is it even possible if somebody wanted to open up a new store, or do they put up for rent signs, things like that? Curious about how the business of Machaneh Yehudah works.
Definitely. So this is actually a beautiful question. Some of the stores, actually, as you guys can see, all the stores here have like the inner part of the store, and then they have this kind of shelf where they put everything to display. So this is what we call a basta. We actually don't call it a store, it's a basta. So some of the bastas are private owners. So either they pass it down with the family, or sometimes they rent it out. Sometimes they also sell them, not as much as renting. And actually all the street that we walked up to, not the one without the rooftop, the one that is covered with the rooftop, is all owned by one yeshiva. Etz Chaim, Tree of Life. It's actually a yeshiva that was established in the old city, and they needed a source of income. And they saw this market starting to develop very unplanned in a very natural way. So they decided to build just a row of stores to rent out, so they'll have some income to the yeshiva, and they are the owners of the store up until today. So some of them are private owned, some of them belong to the yeshiva. Most of the the yeshiva only rents them out, they don't sell it. And the private owners, either they sell it or rent it, but they will make sure that they always sell it or rent it out to Jewish ownership.
Very interesting. Something I learned today. A question. I mean, now, thank goodness you guys in Israel, the vaccine program has been, I think, relatively successful. Tell us what it was like during COVID-19. Was any of these shops able to open? Was fresh produce accessible? Tell me what happened over the last year.
So I'll be honest with you. I used to live here in this area up until a year ago, and then I moved in with who today is my fiance. We're living right now about, let's say, 20 minutes driving distance from the shuk. So for a month, when everything just started, a year ago, I didn't come to the shuk at all. And I was heartbroken. The pictures from here were horrible. Everything was shut down. And then I just started walking around the city. And something very special that happened during the second and the third lockdowns is that the shuk was actually accepted. I don't know if that's the right term, but like it was excluded, from all the lockdown rules. So bars and restaurants had to be shut down, but all the fruits and the vegetables and what we call essential needs stores were open. So everything around Jerusalem was shut down. And if you needed some normal time, people would just come here to the shuk to get that. And that was very unique. Of course, during the night, everything had to be shut down. So during regular times, again, this is the beating heart of the nightlife. The bars and the restaurants during the lockdown time, it wasn't active. But starting last week, all the bars and restaurants are opening up again. So thanks God, if you'll come to the shuk today, you hardly feel that anything is changed. The only difference that you see is that people are wearing the masks.
Got it. Okay. And is there any organization that have a couple questions about the organization? Is it, you mentioned the areas of the bars and the pubs, and there's fresh produce and there's desserts. Is it organized? If somebody were to open up a brand new produce, do they have to be in one section? Is there any organization to it like that?
So they're not organized by theme or anything like that. The shuk is divided mostly by historical terms. So like who's the owners of the street or the stores, or by what community the area was built. There is a working union of the shuk, which is a beautiful working union. It's not as much as balancing who should sell what and where and how much percent should be fresh fruits and vegetables and other stuff, but it's mostly about things that all of them have in common. For example, making sure, and I don't know if we got that on camera, but for example, it's making sure that the shuk is always clean. Again, I don't know if you guys can see it, but if you think about a market, usually the floor would be chaotic and messy. Our floor is very clean because we have a lovely cleaning team that is cooperating with all the different owners. We always have public bathrooms that are open and always clean, which is also very unique to the shuk. There were specific rules regarding the nightlife scene. When do they have to shut down so they won't interrupt the daytime shopping? For example, I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but you see that there are yellow lines on the road. So this is another thing that the shuk union made sure that during the nighttime, you can put tables up until the yellow lines. So you will always have a clear path for people to walk up and down. So these are the things that the shuk working union is taking care about, but it's not specifically about the percentage of different businesses and stuff like that.
Got it. Thank you. And last specific question for now, and then we'll let you continue. You mentioned, of course, the halva and the tahini is vegan, kind of by default. Is there vegan restaurants? Do you see more health conscious things popping up in Machaneh Yehudah? What's the scene over there?
So I think this is a beautiful question. Means that today in our world we have the awareness of shefa. I don't know how to say shefa in English. Shefa, I would say that it's wellness, that everything is accessible for us. Most of the vegan things that we have here are actually coming from the old lifestyle that we had here, mostly during the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, where people just could not afford fresh eggs or meat or milk or any dairy stuff. So all the vegan things that we have here is not part of the healthy trend. It's part of the necessity of life that people had here back in the past. And I love this question because the vegan theme, let's put it like this, is very burning now. It's a very cool thing to talk about, but it's something that has been here since the 30s up until today.
Great, thank you. I'll encourage our audience, keep asking those questions. We'll stop at least one more time. So Oli, continue on.
Thank you so much. So I heard that you guys had a cooking session yesterday with Chef Meir Donnie and Latet organization, which is an amazing thing. And as you guys can see, the shuk is vibrant and is packed with fresh fruits and vegetables. And as I said from before, our shuk today is quite chic. Yeah, so our shuk today is quite chic. The prices are actually higher. If you're looking for the lower price, you will go to a big grocery store chain. If you're looking like to the most unique or fresh things, you'll come here to the shuk. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but one of the reasons that the different vendors are streaming because the sun is starting to go down and the prices are dropping. So earlier in the morning, the prices are higher. Later in the evening, the prices are dropping. But there is one place that is extremely unique because they don't have price tags. More than that, the people in the store usually come with their own bags from home. On top of that, the owners, he's working there on his own. He doesn't have any, let's say, younger generation working with them. Everyone is coming into the store, fill up in the bag whatever they want, the fruits, the vegetables, and then they go to the owner. The owner, he's holding the bag, looking to them directly in the eyes, and he's deciding how much to charge just by their apparel. So this is not a regular store. This is what we call gmach. Gmach in Hebrew stands for act of kindness. This guy grew up here in the shuk, and you make sure that regardless how much money you earn today, you can always afford shopping in the shuk. Now, he's not even buying his produce. Every evening, the different shop owners give him some of their leftover things. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see that in the middle of the shuk, we have this beautiful store that is working directly from the heart, not from your brain or not from your pocket. What we see here is a beautiful, spontaneous jam session, very classic to the shuk. And right next to it, we have the Kamcha de Pascha organization by Magen David Adom. Magen David Adom is our local version, the Israeli version for the Red Cross. And Kamcha de Pascha means that you give donation to people in need, specifically for Pesach. So I'm going to walk really slowly because I don't want to make it too obvious. The gmach that we talked about is right behind me. Okay, so you can see it's the story, right? The gentleman is there on his own, right, with the black kippah on his head. And this is his only source of income. And again, like he's selling the stuff and not really earning anything about it. And I was quite worried about him for a while. I wasn't really aware of how he's actually making his money, how he's like, making his living. And I discovered something incredible. Guys, do you see all those apartments up here? So he's the owners and he rents them out. So he doesn't even have to work. He just wants to be able to be part of this beautiful shuk. So we're going to walk a few steps down into another section that was built during the time of the British. So we're walking down the shuk today, and I don't know about you guys, but I love it. It feels so spontaneous and at the same time so organized. And this is how it developed during the time of the Ottoman Empire. About 150 years ago, people would just come here and sell their products on the floor. And the Ottomans loved this unplanned, go with the flow vibe. But then the British came over and they just hated the chaos. And they figured, you know what? Let's build 3 streets and we'll try to shove all this shuk energy right into them. So this is the area of the shuk we're about to check out right now. It's actually named after a bank that was established in the street called the Banks of Loans and Savings. So this is the official name of this section. But in Jerusalem, we call it the Nuts Shuk because it's nuts. During the night, this is where we have the hardcore nightlife party scenes. So next time you're coming and you want to know where everything is hopping, this is where you should come. You can see that we're almost going outside of the shuk. We're making a sharp left. And here we are. So right now, because it's the time of transition, it's a little more quiet. Shalom. This is my fish guy. I really need to put in my order for fish for Passover. So again, during the night, it's very hopping. During the day, it's a little slower. And we're staying in front of the Etrog man. The owners of the store is Uzi Eli. He's the head of this like lovely Yemenite family. And he just told me the craziest story. So he was born in Yemen, and he liked to drink milk from his mother up until the age of 5. And when he was 5, his mother just had it. She said, go do something else. So his father decided to buy him a goat. And he said, instead of getting the milk from your mother, you'll get the milk from your goat. And when he was 8 years old, they moved from their small village in Yemen all the way here. And just to make the transition easier, they decided to cut the horn of the goat and they gave it to him to hold. And they do have it in the store up until today. Shalom! מה נשמע? So this is Or. He's the son of Uzi, which we can see his picture up here.
Thank you.
בבקשה. Now what I love about the store is that we are here to drink l'chaim, but usually I would come here for the pharmacy. And what do I mean? Not only they make the special drinks, not only they make the special drinks out of the fresh fruits and vegetables, but they also make a lot of herbal medicine over here. So you can see all the I'll show it to you here. You can find all those tiny bottles with the drops.
Brain drops.
Huh?
It's brain drops. Brain drops.
Brain drops?
Yes.
This one's supposed to make you smarter. So basically, a lot of the times, if I had a strep throat or something with my back, I'll come here, I'll talk to Or. He got all the knowledge from his father, and every time they'll give me something different. Guys, I'm so excited to meet you. L'chaim! So what I'm drinking is a mix. I'll show it to you. This is a mix of etrog and gat. Gat are the leaves that traditionally men chew in Yemen. It gives you a natural high and very good energy. And the etrog, we usually know it from Sukkot, right? And after Sukkot, we don't use it. The reason is that actually if you cut it into a half, you can see that the peel is very thick and the fruit is very small itself. One of the special things they do here at the etrog men, they know how to squeeze the juice out of the peel and use that and not specifically the fruit itself. So moving from one traditional Yemenite business to another, again, down the nut street. So this business was basically established by this traditional, very rooted Yemenite family. We're now going to go to another very Yemenite business that was established by very Ashkenazi, hardcore two friends who grew up here in Jerusalem. And they actually were very involved in the nightlife scene. And they needed this nice bite at the end of the party before you're going to bed. And this is exactly what we have here. Shalom! מה נשמע? אתה יכול להקפיץ לי מלאווח בבקשה? בבקשה. תודה רבה. So what we have here, this place is called a Jachnun bar. Jachnun is a very traditional Yemenite dish for Shabbat lunch. But what we're going to have here today is a Malawach. The recipe of the Malawach itself is their own recipe. They fry it, and they're just joining the party. So after they fry the bread, which we'll do in just a second, because the frying process is very cool, we have all kinds of different toppings. Sorry. Are you ready? Whew. This is going to be long. Hummus, green tahini, regular tahini, grind tomatoes, olives, red onions, deep fried onion, white onion, parsley, eggplant, deep fried mushrooms. On top of all of it, hard-boiled egg, some olive oil, and just so we don't have any lacking flavor in our mouth, also za'atar. You really cannot come to Israel without trying any za'atar. Now this thing is basically a party happening in your mouth as the party is happening in the street. For example, this bar over here, this is not even the prep party. This is so early. If you would come here, let's say in about 3 or 4 hours, this street would be packed with different people going up and down the streets, holding a beer in their hand, and it's just the best party in town. Okay, you see that they're taking a little time of making our malawach, but it's worth the wait. So now we just need to wait to get the party started. Ready? Kama dakot? Dan, I see that we have 2 minutes. Meanwhile, if we want to get one question for now. Okay. So, all right, we're going to continue because, whoopa. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Whoopa! This is how we do it. Oh. Something's really worth the wait. Konnichiwa. This is how we shook it. So guys, let me share with you something small about me. As I told you, I've been a tour guide for the past 11 years of my life. But about 6 years ago, I wasn't really sure if that's what I want to do. So I decided to take a year off. And I came to work here in the shuk. And I was working as a waitress. And that's the place we're going to visit now. The coffee place that I used to work at. And for me, don't get me wrong, the shuk is home, but the coffee place, Roasters, is like the real place. If I really want to relax, just to take a deep breath, that's where I'm going. I really hope the owners is still there. They're having a crazy day getting ready for Pesach. Shalom! So this is a beautiful place. It's called Roasters. Shalom. This is Tal. Behind him we have Nama. You can see both of them are working really hard. They have a lot of the fresh ground coffee that's supposed to be delivered tomorrow morning. Do you see the machine that Nama is standing next to? So this is the roaster machine. They actually import the coffee beans themselves from South America and Africa, one species from Asia. They make 14 different mixtures, and they roast here every day at least 20 pounds of fresh coffee beans. So after the coffee beans are being grinded fresh, they need to be kept right here. So a lot of people will just come, sit on the bar, hang out, but then Tyler and Amar, who are working here, will ask me to stand up because they need to get the fresh coffee. Those 2 containers, every one of them contain about 40 pounds of coffee beans. So people sitting here cannot really realize what they're sitting on top of. And honestly, the coolest thing that's happened is that when I opened this box, the beautiful coffee aroma just broke out. So Tal knows me. I drink here my coffee between 3 to 5 times a day. Their coffee is that good. So you see, like as regular clients, I come here, I see them, they say me, hey, how are you? And ask me if I want my usual. So I have my usual drink. Then after a while, usually you also become friends with the owners. We'll go to see in a second if he's around. And he told me, you know what, you're actually more of a friend than a client. So you'll get your own price. So I have my own drink, my own price. And eventually, if you're really like a local drinker in the coffee place, you get your glass with your name labeled on it. Now, I'll be honest, my glass broke 2 weeks ago, so they're making a new one for me. But I got a Vigal's glass instead. Let's go downstairs to see if the owners is around so we can say hi. יאקי עוד פה? יאקי עוד כאן? כבר הלך? Okay, so apparently the owner is supposed to be back tomorrow morning around 5:30 a.m. So we left for the evening. But I'd like to talk about my friends. We're actually sitting right below me. I don't know if you can see them in the camera. And I'm not the only person who's like falling in love with this coffee place. We're talking about a combination, as you can see behind me, of men and women, older and younger, very different in their background. Some of them are more observant, some of them are more modern, and we're all getting together here at Roasters. Now, at the beginning, people used to come here for the coffee, but today, we really come here for the company. And if you ask me, this is the essence of the shuk. You know, we talked about all the different like cultures coming here, bringing their own unique flavor. But what really makes this shuk so beautiful and unique is the different relationships. And people actually grow from those relationships. And not just bring who they are, but they actually learn from others and getting better. Woo! Dan, do you want to ask me any questions?
Thank you, Ori. This has been amazing, and I appreciate so much bringing us to your home cafe, so to speak. There are a few questions, so we'll take the last couple minutes to do Q&A. I encourage all those participants at home. Just about everybody stuck with us throughout the tour, so it shows how much we are sitting here in LA wishing we were there in Jerusalem with you. You know, it's interesting right now on the calendar. Here in the United States, we've already set our clocks forward. We've already spring forward, and in Israel, you have not. So we're now only a 9-hour time difference. So I'm curious about which makes it only 10 of 7 p.m. in Israel, if that's correct. So tell me a little bit about when things normally would be closing. Is this a normal day? Are there normal produce shops open this late? Is it because it's before Pesach? Is it because it's after COVID? Tell me about the timing of things, when things would normally be closing and opening.
So it's not necessarily about Pesach, it's mostly about the days of the week. So Sunday, Monday, stores will shut around like, let's say 7 or 8, and then the nightlife starts, will kick in. Around Thursday or Wednesday, we're talking about like 8 to 9-ish. And then Thursday, we're talking about staying really late. So tonight, even regardless Pesach and regardless COVID, we're talking with some of the stores will be still open up until 10:30. At the same time, we need to remember that the nightlife scene always starts at the same time, around 8. So Thursday, around I'd say 9 in the evening, is crazy because you have all the nightlife scene and all the daytime scene happening at the same time.
Got it. Thank you. And a question, you know, the market is so traditional, so old. There's so much history over there. Has there been any thought about how things maybe we're going to need to change because everything's open air? If people are now maybe more sensitive to the spread of viruses and things like that, even though most Israelis have been vaccinated, was there a concern or a thought that maybe the market would have to change? Plexiglass, taking away open food items. What was the discussion on that?
The discussion is actually the opposite. What we've seen specifically in Israel since the 80s is the growth of the biggest grocery stores chain and less markets. And what's happening now, because our markets are relatively outdoors, people tend more to come to the shuk than to the grocery store chains. I hope I answered your question because in Israel, this is the dynamic we're talking about. The fact that things are open is not as bothering as much as walking into a big room with 1,000 other people. It's just easier, feel more safe to walk around the shuk that is in the open air.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. I know it's probably going to be the hardest question I'll ask, but one of our participants is asking, is there any one famous restaurant in Machaneh Yehudah or in the area, a historical restaurant, or maybe a couple that people, if somebody were to say to you, hey, I'm on my way, where should I go get the best shawarma or the best falafel, or is there any couple of spots that come to mind?
Woo! So let's be honest. First of all, it depends on your budget. It depends if you want to go kosher. And honestly, it depends if you're going to go, meat, dairy, if you're looking for drinks, and I'll try to give all the options. So if your budget is unlimited and if you don't really care about kosher, we have the Machaneh Yehudah restaurant, belongs to Chef Asaf Granit. We have it here in the shuk. And even today, during the COVID times, you need to wait about 2 months to the table that you ordered. So that would be like the fanciest shuk restaurant that we have here. Um, so that's on one end of the scale. If you want to go to the very other end, I would go to something very simple, very cheap, very kosher. Excuse me. Uh, I'm vaccinated. Don't worry. I think it's just the temperature is dropping, so I sleep. We have this lovely bakery called Halva. The Halva bakery has been around 430 years, and they make the ka'ak. Ka'ak is the traditional Iraqi bread that is kosher to Pesach. It's like the OG version for matzah. You can get here. You can get it here in the shuk. It costs less than 2 shekels, so less than 50 cents. It's extremely cheap. And if you're asking me, if you're looking like to the very rooted, very Machaneh Yehudah flavor texture in your mouth, that would be it. And if I'm thinking about like something medium that is both shuk and chic, I would recommend you to go to this lovely place called Duini. The names of the owners is Dini. She grew up here in the shuk, and she took all the like local flavor and combined them on a tapas. So it feels a little more fancy. The price is still very reasonable. And the tapas that she's using is a pita. So she's basically taking the shuk and chicken, she's making it this lovely fusion of flavors and textures in your mouth. And she have things that are meat, and she have things that are vegan and vegetarian. So that should be helpful for everyone. I hope I answered it. Okay.
Perfect. We were all taking notes, and now we know exactly where to go. The nightlife in Machaneh Yehudah is, relatively speaking, new. Right in the last 5 years, 10 years or so. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about? Talk about the dynamic of Jerusalem, right? It's in my work at the Federation, a lot of the times when we're leading our delegations, we're taking non-Jewish groups or even groups of teachers, and in their mind, Jerusalem is everybody with a black hat, a long dress. So can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of Jerusalem and why the nightlife in Machaneh Yehudah is so important, and what that means and what that looks like?
Of course. So you're actually asking a question that is a little bit complicated, because if you ask me, Jerusalem is not one city. It's actually 3 cities that are parallel. So we have the ultra-Orthodox city, then we have the Arabic-speaking city, and then we have what I call the open-minded city. That is modern, mostly speaking Hebrew and dressed like me. I'll say that, I don't even know how to begin to answer the question. We always had a nightlife scene here in Jerusalem, but it used to be more in the area of the Ben Yehuda street. The part of the nightlife thing is always to be unique and look to the next new hot spot. And about like 12 years ago, people realized that when you're coming to the shuk at night, everything is shut down. So it started very underground, very unplanned about 12 years ago, 10 years ago. The mayor's office realized that there is an amazing potential here. And today, if you'll come here during every evening, apart from Friday night, which is Shabbat, you'll see that all the businesses are open. And you can see a huge combination of people. Again, in ages, you can see some are wearing kippahs and some are don't, some are very traditional, some are very modern. And I think just like the daytime shuk is a beautiful meeting spot for people who are coming here for the groceries, the nightlife scene is also a beautiful attraction for different people from different parts of Jerusalem to get together. Now, please don't get me wrong. I love Tel Aviv. It's so awesome. But I think that partying in Jerusalem is much more meaningful because it's not the obvious thing to do. You're kind of like reclaiming your spot in the city.
Great, thank you. And I think one of the things that we hear so often when we are able to come, and hopefully that'll be very soon again, is exactly what you talked about in terms of these different sectors, but that at certain points they interact with each other, right? It's not 100% separate. And we've found that in the market is maybe one of those places, and I think I was in the market not too long ago watching World Cup soccer, and you saw religious, Arab, secular, all there having a beer, watching the soccer matches. And I think that's probably been one of the benefits of the nightlife in the market and throughout Jerusalem. Would you agree with that?
Exactly.
Well, it's just been about an hour, so I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank our tour company, IGT Tours in Israel, and of course our partners here in Los Angeles, World Express Travel. And I want to thank everybody that was participating in this, and especially I want to thank you, Ori. We've couldn't, if only we could smell through and taste through our computer, we really would have been there, but you had the next best thing and we felt really like we were back. So I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And just once again, a reminder to everybody, we'll be back in a couple weeks with more live Zooms all over Israel. Thank you all. Have a good day. And if we don't talk to you before, Chag Sameach and happy Passover.
Thank you all so much, guys. Waiting to see you in Jerusalem. Bye-bye.